Hello there, it's Mark Macmillan here from Macmillan Centre for Learning. One of the first theories we're going to be looking at is attachment theory. When we think about the various relationships that we have, and we see the way that we relate to people, we understand that our relationships are quite different. And it's okay for our relationships to be different, and this will be determined by the type of relationship that we have. So if you have a family, for instance, you may have a different relationship between mother and child than you may have with a sister or brother. They will still have an attachment, but it will be a different type of attachment. Daniel Hughes cites that Stern says that the attachments that a young person has is the first order of business for any infant, and within the early 4 to 5 months they create a core sense of self and core others, and this is what we look for when a child is born, and as they begin to create a relationship with the primary caregiver. What we find with a child of that, it's as the child begins to grow and develop, they become more autonomous, they begin to see themselves as an individual rather than this person who's in front of them being an extension of themselves. They begin to develop that sense of self. But they do develop an intimate relationship with the mother, as Hughes puts it, or with the primary caregiver, as depending on the family structure that the child is placed in. John Bowlby is a main writer when it comes to understanding what attachment is. He sees that attachment is a unique response that protects the infant from harm. Having somebody around you who is bigger and more capable means that the dangers that an infant might experience can be fended off by the primary caregiver, as they have more of an understanding of the challenges of life and what the dangers might be. And so attachment is part of that process to ensure the survival and development of that infant. Maintaining proximity or closeness to the caregiver is essential for this survival to take place. So the connection between the infant and the primary caregiver is absolutely necessary for that child to, first of all, survive, to be fed, to be watered, to be cared for, but also to grow and develop. There's a behavioral system built in to ensure the goal of proximity or closeness is achieved. And so an infant, without being instructed, will behave in a way that encourages the parent or the primary caregiver to stay close by, to respond. And there's something within the primary caregiver, a nurturing aspect of their character, that will normally respond to the behavioral patterns of the child, the infant, to meet the particular needs, to ensure survival, to ensure that they can grow and develop. The development of attachment follows a clear developmental course, and we can see as an infant grows into a child and onwards, we can see how the relationship grows and develops. The relationship that you have with an infant is different to the relationship you have with a toddler. The behavior that the toddler demonstrates will elicit a different response. And so the interaction that takes place influences the attachment development that goes on as both parent and child grow. So what we can see is there are core relationships that are very important. Okay, and whilst I use the word mother, I'm going to be using the word parent as often as I can through my discussion. And even as if you are providing care, you are a corporate parent, and so if you're providing a parental role, this is what you are creating, this core attachment relationship. Sometimes relationships don't work so well, and we have to recognize where attachments are not conducive to a proper or appropriate development, but we need to understand what normal patterns of attachment are. And to be able to understand that, we have to understand what the characteristics of attachment is. We can see in the bottom section that attachment and the relationships that are created within that attachment create a safe haven. When the child feels threatened or afraid, they can return to that caregiver for comfort and soothing. There's an individual they look for because something feels like a threat. They're afraid of something and they need a space, a person to go to, and that person becomes their safe haven. This then creates this secure base. When there's a safe haven, the individual, the child, then looks for that individual as a sense of security and dependability on which they can then explore the world around them. When the relationship is secure, the child is freer to explore more widely. The child will ensure proximity maintenance. And they'll strive to stay near the caregiver, and so therefore the child feels safe, and they'll always keep the caregiver in view up until one developmental point where they feel safe enough within themselves to take that step further. But what we see within the earlier stages is evidence of separation distress. Bowlby talks about this separation anxiety. That when the child is separated from the caregiver, the child will become upset and distressed, and that is a normal pattern of child's or infant caregiver relationships. It's how that separation distress then continues that will determine our view of what attachment style this has. That attachment style was looked at by Mary Ainsworth, and I will direct you towards Mary Ainsworth's piece of research where she brought people into a strange situation, and you can view that online on YouTube. You can see how parents were brought to a new situation, and the child was brought into this new situation. There was an introduction of a stranger into that new situation, and so Mary Ainsworth looked at the behavioural responses of children, and she categorised them into two main areas, one being secure attachment and the other being insecure attachment. But insecure attachment was broken into two components: avoidant attachment styles or ambivalent attachment styles. And you can see within this building blocks and balloons section that there is a clear difference in the response to the situation and to the events that took place. And what you can do is you can pause this video to read through this more carefully. But what they've discovered as they went through these different attachment styles was that they remain looking at the material, recognized that there were some who did not fit into the categories that had been set. And so Mary Main recognized that there was this disorganized attachment style as well. And the behavior pattern that a child who had a disorganized attachment style displayed was quite different to what the others were demonstrating. Now, there are attachment disorders as well, where an individual may have issues in relation to attachments. And so I would encourage you to go on and read more about that within the workbook and in your further reading. But all I'm pointing you towards is that the people who are in front of you when you go into work, they all have a particular attachment style that influences how they engage with peers or others around them. And not forgetting that staff, as well as the individuals you're providing care for, also have this attachment style. And when you consider the type of attachment style that a member of staff may have, and then they work with somebody who may have a different attachment style, we can understand that there may be some conflict. So if you have somebody who is, for instance, insecure, avoidant, detached, they don't seem to connect in a reliant way with the parent who is there. They are more trusting. Their focus is on how they are dealing with life. And if they then come across somebody who is insecure, ambivalent, who is clingy, who is looking for attention, seeking contact from the primary caregiver, there can be some conflict. Or it might be that the individual you're providing care for is the one who's avoidant, detached. And if the caregiver, if the member of staff, it has an ambivalent nature and looking to soothe and care for somebody, that might be rejected by the individual who is avoidant detached. And so again, conflict can arise. So consider your attachment style. Think where you fit into all of this. And then consider the interactions you've had with the people you provide care for. And what impact has the different attachment styles had on that interaction?